all my fish. Well, today I wanted to bring you kind of a status update on all of my fish, all my fish tanks, my pond, and kind of go through just where I'm at. For those of you who are curious how my freshwater tank's been doing, you know, this is a young tank. It's only been up for a couple, 3 months. And I made my first post, I don't know, back in April or something like that. And I finally got to the place I've been waiting for. And that is this overgrowth of hair algae. And it's awful. And but it was expected. Now, some say you don't have to get to this point. If you start a tank up with lots of plants in it to begin with, you may never get the algae. And I think in most cases, that's true, but I think in most cases that it isn't true. You have to go through this stage. Yes, it's possible to miss it, but I just didn't have that many plants. But I'm really pleased that I finally got to it, and because I believe I'm going to get over the hump and it's going to work its way out. In fact, it was actually much worse a couple weeks ago, and now I see it's, I got in, I've been cleaning it out by hand a little bit, and then this past week it looks to me as if it's starting to subside. Now, I don't have any snails, I don't have any shrimp, I don't have any Siamese algae eaters or anything of that sort. So I probably could help myself along if I did try to get some of those things. And one of the things I did try to do is get the shrimp. So I recently was out kayaking one of my local lakes, and I netted up a whole bunch of shrimp and put them in the tank, and I don't see one, not one. I don't know if the serpent tetras attacked them and just pulled them to shreds. I never saw that happen, but I guess I wasn't paying attention. I poured them in, and I don't know. There is a little sunfish, I believe, back there by that sponge in the right corner. I netted him, and I have to see him grow a little to see what he is. I also netted, you can see him along the back side there. I really don't have a good look at him. I also netted, I think, a killifish. And so the killifish is, he's right there in the middle of everything. He looks like a nice specimen. I don't know anything about him, to be honest with you. I'm not even sure it is a killifish. But right now, that's my belief. Some of you may be able to comment on that if you know for sure. I don't know if what his needs are, or any service he can do for me, but so far he's fun. I don't know how big he'll get. He's actually kind of a pleasant fish. And look at these serpent tetras. Week after week, they just seem to get redder and more colorful, deeper, richer color than you can imagine. And so it's just been wonderful seeing them. They've calmed down considerably. It's not like when the first week or two, when I first put them in, they were always beating up on each other. They get a little rowdy in the morning when they first get up, but other than that, you can just watch them here. They're not that terrible or of a fish. The glow lights are amazing. You see the coloration on these? I always thought the glow lights had the orange stripe as compared to other neons, which have the blue and or even green, or a mix between the bluish greens, and the glow lights to be an orange. And I love that orange, but these have gotten such a deep, rich orange that it's almost a reddish orange. Well, it is. It's a reddish orange. And the eyes are spectacular. So I've really enjoyed these fish. Now that they're very much at ease in this tank and familiar with it over the course of the last couple of months, they don't school they just all scatter about, except for certain times when I'm on the, where things are going on in the tank, or I put my hand in, the big monster from outer space comes in and sticks his hand in there. Then they school up a little bit, but other than that, they're just comfortable. Everything's doing good, and pretty much have an automatic feeder, and everything's healthy. As far as I know, I'm not losing anything. The corridors are looking great. They're happy. The corridors are looking great and doing wonderful. In fact, the one thing I could say about the corridors, when I first put them in, I have 4 of them. When I first put them in, they pretty much were about doing their own thing individually. But now, as they, just the opposite of maybe the tetras, most of the time I usually see at least 2 corridors together, one going rogue off its side, and sometimes I'll see 3 of them together, with the 4th one going rogue. And then if you look at my saltwater lagoon tank, that's been doing well, and there's nothing really exciting about it, but I can tell you the butterfly is very healthy, eats great, good healthy fish, strong fish. The Klein butterfly, if you're looking for a butterfly that is easy to keep, and I'm not even saying butterflies are pretty much difficult fish, but this particular butterfly, I would say, is actually easy to keep. He eats anything. I swear you can put anything in there and this fish will go for it and eat it and suck it down. Very aggressive eater. And the macroalgae here, the caulerpa, is doing well. You can see it actually sprouted a strand all along the front glass, and other than that, it looks pretty much the same. It's doing well. I still got snails and hermit crabs and whatever. I need to make a trip out to the lagoon again. I'm going to have some time, in a couple of weeks from now, I'm going to have some time to go out there, and maybe I can collect some more specimens, some more hermits, but I would like to get some more fish right out of the lagoon, local to my area, just a few miles away from my home, to put in this tank, and hopefully that will calm down the butterfly and he won't feel so lonely. Also in this tank I have some mushrooms, as far as corals go, and a gorgonian, and look, the seagrasses, I really didn't have high expectations for these seagrasses to live at all. It looks like a couple of the seagrasses actually are doing good. So we'll see what happens in the future. The gorgonian, I need to, that's actually been doing better as time goes on, but I need to move it towards the back, get it a little bit more current. There's not a lot of current in this tank, as you can see, but there is some, and it's not up where the gorgonian is. I need to move it back, or move the current, or do something to get it back in the current. And I think overall, if I want to see the gorgonian, the mushrooms, and even some of the, I got a few, not many, but I got a few polyps of zoanthids in this tank, which haven't pretty much been closed, hadn't done a thing. They're not dying off. In fact, they kind of half open, and I think the key to that is really get a coral light on here. The LED strip I have is actually for a freshwater tank, which I thought would be great for the macroalgae and the kind of lagoon tank I have. But if I'm going to have some corals, that I really need to switch over and get a new LED strip that has the spectrum for the coral. And of course, I would imagine that as long as it's a full spectrum, the caulerpa would do just fine. I know it will. So this tank is also beginning to get a lot of algal growth, but nothing terrible, and it's been good. And so I haven't. It's kind of boring to be even talking about it so much, because nothing really to speak of. It's just a tank I have, and I'm enjoying it in a whole different kind of way. It's not a full saltwater tank. It's a lagoon tank, and I'm just taking my time with it and having it really a flexible tank, open for just about anything that comes my way. in the area of collecting and not rushing anything, not really having much in the way of plans. That's the saltwater lagoon tank, and the butterfly is fabulous. Now, if you're curious, some of the items I feed the butterfly are bloodworms, freeze-dried blackworms. He loves those. I bought those years ago trying to get the four-eyed butterflies to eat it. They would have nothing to do with it. Really didn't seem to have any fish that cared about it. This fish loves my freeze-dried blackworms. But I also feed it some frozen bloodworms, mysid shrimp, of course, frozen mysids it loves. That's a really good one. It eats pellet food like mad, and so I give it an assortment of pellet, dry food. And, about once a week or so, I give it a treat and put half a clam shell in there for him. And so he gets to enjoy a clam once in a while. One of the other things I will say about this lagoon tank is it's got a very small hang on the back filter, probably the smallest they make. It's 20 gallon long, and the filter box I got in there is probably for a 20. I mean, it's tiny. But I got Boyd's, not Boyd's Chemic Pure, but Boyd's Blue, which is it's a mix between, I think, activated carbon and resin. And I thought I'd give that a try, and it's been great. It really has. It's been doing what everybody says it does, and I think I'll stick to it. It's a little expensive, but you don't have to change it out too often. I think once every couple 3 months would be fine. Now onto my pond. I've been getting a lot of requests as far as doing an update on the pond, and people curious about how these goldfish are doing. It's been over a year now, and they are very colorful. They've grown. They're not huge. They're maybe 4 or 5 inches in length. Some of them are a little. They're growing at different speeds. So some are getting really big, and others are staying kind of medium size, 2-3 inches in length. Well, more. I don't think I have anything as small as 2, but 3 and 4 inches in length, and then of course the big ones probably are 6 inches. But very colorful. I still got as far as I know, I still got all of them. I did lose a couple earlier in the year to a cat that came by, but I started out with like 25, and I still think I have over 20. I could probably still put the camera on pause and count them, but one of the things I got is this floating plant. It's not water hyacinth. I can't remember what it's called. It's but it is one of these floating plants. And a year ago when I put this stuff in the pond, I put I don't know, a clump of maybe a 6-inch diameter of this stuff, maybe not even that much. And after a while, it died away, and it didn't survive. And I don't know why. I thought maybe the goldfish were just eating it. Anyway, this time I threw in a clump of this stuff, and every time I looked, it's more and more of it. So at first I didn't believe it was multiplying, but obviously it is. Now it's taken over quite a bit of the pond, and it's great. It's really nice. The fish look good. They contrast well with it. I like having the floating plant. At some point, I gotta put some effort in and get some other plants, pond plants. I decided to come back a couple hours later when the sun was shining. It's not always best for the reflection off the water when it's full sun, but I do like to look at how the fish color and scales change when they go in the sunlight, and so I thought I'd present that to you, though, who are curious about how the fish are looking. And very healthy fish, doing great. I'm so pleased with this pond. I hardly give any effort at all to it, to be honest with you. One of the parts of my fish hobby that has been very enjoyable for me is to have the pond fish as well as all the indoor fish in tanks. At some point, I don't know, it's not in the near future, but maybe a year or two from now, I will think about, well, I'm thinking about it now, but I will get into a bigger pond in my yard. There's some things that need to be done first, and one of them was to get a fence put in. And now I got my yard fenced in, so that will help with predators and stuff. And, so that's done, and so maybe next summer I'll get a bigger pond. Now, lastly, we'll take a look at my main display, my 125-gallon saltwater aquarium, which I look at as my Atlantic reef tank because it has nothing but Atlantic species as far as the fish go. And of course the Gorgonians are all Atlantic, collected by myself in the Florida Keys. And then the corals, of course, I got from friends, or some of it I purchased, but most of it I got from other hobbyists while I was in a club, or other hobbyists that were going out. Those of you who've been watching my channel, you won't see much of anything new. It's just the same old, same old. I love my tank, and I'm not a collector of every new coral head, and I like the underwater scene to be spacious, to have a lot of white space, to have the flowing, the Gorgonians, whipping back and forth and giving the flow, so you can kind of feel for it, more so than having to go out and get every species of coral in existence. So that is my intent, and I do have some plans, of course, for some new corals and whatever, but right now, since I put on the new lights, I've just been really enjoying the tank the way it is, and everything's been spectacular. So I threw in some brine shrimp just so I can get on film all the fish coming out, and I still got all my fish. I mean, nothing's died off or anything. The blue tang is, as you can see, is mostly blue now. On occasion, you can catch him where he kind of goes into a yellow phase, but more often he's in the blue phase than yellow. And what's really kind of neat about right now, though, he hasn't gone completely blue. You can see his body's blue, but his tail is still yellow. And I still have the Royal Grama. He's all the way to the left of the tank, and he kind of stays in his little hole that he loves to stay in. And of course I got the chalk bass, which is doing great, and my lawnmower Blenny, everything's been happy, doing phenomenally good. In fact, the chalk bass, they don't mind each other I've seen them in the stores where they kind of like to stay together. So I'm thinking about getting another chalk bass and seeing if they will kind of hang together. They don't swim. They like to kind of hang, and like a lot of bass, is just kind of hang and watch, more so than swim all over the place. So he usually likes to stay still in one spot and just hang out and look good. And it's one of these simple fish with simple colorations, and yet they're very appealing to me, and I've always liked them. Corals have been fabulous. As the weeks go by under the new lights, the coloration just keeps getting better and better. The blue zoanthids get bluer, and the frog spawn is getting, to me, even prettier in coloration. And the zoanthids, I mean the green zoanthids, have just been brilliant. And even the brain crawl in the back there is very healthy now. It was at the point where I thought I was going to lose it, and now it's been healthy. It's been good. And now I'm at the point where I'm hoping I can start seeing coral growth again. And course, the Gorgonians, I almost constantly have to trim those back. The Blastomusa is looking fabulous. All these, the Duncan is got a rich green coloration to it. I do like to film in the morning. Now, I don't really prefer the overly blue tank, and I don't really enjoy watching other YouTube videos where it's more towards the blue end of the spectrum. But that's the way the tank is in the early morning, and it's not that I'm trying to film in when the lights are more blue. It's just that they're that way in the morning, and the morning time is the one time I know that there's not going to be anybody at home, and at least up and talking, and dogs barking, and garbage trucks, and lawnmowers, and and outside noises. It's just everything seems a little bit more quiet, and that's why I like to try to film my tank. It's not the optimum time where all your coral polyps are extended and the lights are at the maximum peak. No, it's not that time, but it is. I really enjoy this time of day, though. At the lower light levels, and things are just coming out, and there's something sparkling nice about the beginning of the day. Yeah, and looking at chalk bass, he just likes that spot. He kind of blends in really nice with the Gorgonian and hangs out there right below it. So there you have it. The blue tang is, of course, it's Atlantic blue tang. He's grown so fast. I never expected him to grow so fast. He's gotten so big so fast that it's almost like the 125 gallons, 5 feet of swimming space is just not enough for a grazing animal that wants to cover acres of territory to graze. And that may be the case for almost all the tangs, where if you look at the chalk bass, he's perfectly happy to have his niche right there on the Gorgonian. Same thing with the Royal Grama, who has this little hole that he doesn't get within, he gets a foot or two away from there, and then he always kind of makes sure he stays close to where he can dart back in. Even the big guy has an area where he stays at until food comes out. Lawnmower Blenny have personalities galore, and they're like having a little pet dog going from rock to rock. They seem to be totally happy. It's these fish like the tangs and stuff that, you always feel like you can never have too big of a tank for them. And, they're a favorite fish among hobbyists, of course. And I can't imagine not having one. But they sure do cover the space of an aquarium in a fraction of a moment. At some point, I want to go back, and I'm not going to purchase an angelfish, but I want to go back and collect an angelfish, because that's one of the specimens I can go get. Although they'll swim all over the place. If you remember my rock beauty, he was always all over the place. But they're very comfortable with a particular hole or whatever, a little cavern or whatever they can call home. So at some point I will bring home another collected angelfish, and you can see at the sweeper tentacles coming out of the bubble coral. And that bubble coral has gotten so big and so beautiful, but the sweeper tentacles came out. You can see that sponge that used to be covered with mushrooms. Sweeper tentacles, they just wiped those mushrooms off that sponge, and they kind of broke loose and floated around the tank, and they're anywhere else. But I got so many mushrooms. Years ago I started this tank with just, I don't know, a couple mushrooms of different species, and now I've got walls of mushrooms. And that's why I kind of ported some of them over to my Lagoon tank. But yeah, I got all the way in the front, I got a little ball of zoos that have more of a little orange color to it, and so that's something I bought a year ago at Wide World of Corals, and eventually they'll take off. They're doing healthy too. Really, the frog spawn to me has been beautiful. Yeah, not much to say other than it just gave everybody an update and show off my tank, and hopefully you enjoyed your time as much as I have of presenting you all of my fishes. We'll catch you next time.